Okay, sweetie, this is yours. Yeah. Okay, sweetie.
I'd like to call to order, please, a regular meeting on Monday, December 8th at 6 p.m. Before we begin, there's just a reminder that we'll have a special meeting tonight following the regular meeting. So please join Councilman Campbell in the Pledge of Allegiance, and please stay standing for the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will you please bow your head as I pray? Dear wise and loving Father, first let me say thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here tonight. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health we need to fulfill our callings, and for subsistence and for friendship. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. Thanks as well for the freedom to embrace you, and thank you for loving us from your boundless and gracious nature. In the scriptures, you have said that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities, since you have established those very authorities to promote peace and order and justice. Therefore, I pray for our mayor, for our various levels of city officials, and in particular for this assembled council. I am asking that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our time, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement, and personal peace in our lives and joy in our tasks. I pray for the agenda set before us today. Please give us an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work around our beloved city of Goodyear. Bless and protect our police and fire, dear Lord, as well as our military all over the world. Keep a hedge of protection around them at all times. It is in your most blessed name that I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Councilman Campbell. First of all, Councilman Osborne will not be attending the meeting tonight, so could I please have a motion as second to excuse her?
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion from Councilman Stipp and a second from Councilman, Councilman Campbell. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. We have two communication items. The first item is a presentation on the launch of the Community Build Pump Track project. Nathan Torres, Parks and Recreation Director, will present. I see some guests he has with him, so I'll let you introduce them, Nathan.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm happy to present the formal launch of Community Pump Track project that will take place at Foothills Community Park. Why is this project so great, and what is a pump track? We're going to answer those questions for you this evening. But why is this project so great is it's truly, in its truest sense, community-driven. The community will not only enjoy this amenity for years to come, but the community will design or have designed, the community will build, the community will maintain this track and this amenity. And so in the true form of partnership, it is just that. The project was spearheaded by West Valley Trails Association. It's a group of West Valley and Goodyear residents that partake in trail development, and they're trail advocates. They're responsible for creating and maintaining numerous miles of trails in the Estrella community and throughout the valley for that matter. We also are combining with Newland Communities, the current BMX park, as well as the residents to see this happen. So what is a pump track? A pump track is a series of dirt mounds that are strategically placed that allow a rider to basically go through the track with minimal pedaling. So the pump track is a name that's applied here because it represents the pumping motion that's done with your arms as you proceed through the track. So it's a great way for healthy lifestyles as well as great recreational amenity.
Yeah, I think
Who's going to be the first to try it?
I think the mayor should be first.
Uh-oh. In terms of location, it will be at the Foothills Community Park. The area in green is phase 1 of the park. That's what's there now. The area that's highlighted in red is an area of the park that was planned for future phase 2. That's several years out. And so what this project allows us to do, highlighted in the blue area, is take advantage of some of that space that's there now within our park to provide an additional amenity for residents. We talk about cooperative efforts. The West Valley Trails Alliance will design the track, provide volunteers to construct the track, as well as provide ongoing maintenance for the track through our Adopt a Park program. Newland Communities will supply water. They will also supply additional dirt if needed, as well as future landscape boulders. And of course, Goodyear will provide the dirt that's already on site, provide the heavy equipment to move the dirt for the first few days of the build, and work hand in hand with West Valley Trails Association and construction of the amenity. It's our estimate that the cost to the city will be around $5,000 that will be covered within our existing operation budget. So we have the space, we have the volunteers, we have the concept, and we're going to provide a great amenity for very low cost. There's a conceptual image of what it will look like. To the left there, that's going to be the kiddie area. And so this is designed for what's called strider bikes for the young ones. So strider bikes actually don't have pedals. They use their legs for momentum, and they whip around the track there. And then, of course, on the right side is for your more advanced users. Would like to acknowledge a few of the key players from our Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission and Trails and enthusiast, Mr. Brian Murphy. We have Pete Tyke representing Newland Communities, Ruben Ortiz, West Valley Trails Association member and track designer, David Cardwell, West Valley Trails Alliance, who's basically served as the project manager. We have Kim Dowd, West Valley Trails Alliance chair, and also was instrumental in helping us connect with the Newland communities. And of course, we have our staff that's worked hard on this project as well. Parks and Recreation Superintendents David Side and Jeremy Figueroa. And then, of course, standing behind us, the most important group is our community. And so if I can have the community stand, please.
Nice.
It's important to note that this concept was community-driven from start to finish. We're excited about the opportunity, and volunteers will start to organize on-site December 13th and 14th at 9 a.m. There is communication that's up. If you search, they have an active Facebook page for, if you do a search for Goodyear's Pump Track, support Goodyear Pump Track, you'll find all the information needed to attend. And so with that, we can answer any questions that you may have.
Yes. Council, comments? Councilman Loretano.
Many of you know that I have a 12-year-old son that likes to BMX, and we live up in Estrella, and this is a great addition, and this is great for our kids, especially. This is a great workout. That is harder than it looks. So thank you so much, and we'll be excited for the opening.
Any other comments? Councilman Stipp?
Yeah, until this came before us tonight, you had no idea what a pump track was. And this will be it. It is it's much greater than the name leads it to be. So we I'm sure everyone's going to say how much they appreciate everyone coming forward. But one of the things we've been talking about for the last several years is what is important to the community and doing something for the community. And this is clearly right up that alley. So thanks for being part of that.
Councilman Campbell?
Well, as we can see, the recreation needs to our community is changing and evolving, and it's exciting to see that this is coming. My boys, who are older than the young man on here, used to ride the bumps, but they didn't call it BMX. I don't know what they called it, but they would just go find a dirt lot and try to see who could hit the hole the hardest and then bounce out. But this is wonderful. I'm assuming that, are we going to have any supervision on site as these youngsters use it, or is this going to be open for anyone to use it at any time?
Mayor, Councilmember Campbell, this will be treated like any other amenity within our park, a basketball court, a skate park that is unsupervised. It will be open basically from sunup to sundown, but it will be open to the public.
And the kids will know to go the same direction.
Correct. And you want to talk about how that kind of
Would you use the mic, please? Thank you.
Ruben Ortiz, West Valley Trails Association.
Hello. Yes, so I've designed this park to be as safe as possible. When you see BMX jumps, you turn on the TV, it's pretty extreme. There's a high risk. With this park, I've eliminated all that in design. It starts from little kids, like Nathan was saying, on their Strider bike, pretty much with training wheels, just pumping along on little mounds like 1 foot tall, up to what you're seeing here on the more advanced line, and along the way it allows for progression throughout the park.
And can the kids get off of it at any time? Is
Yes,
that why
so
it's
there will be
looped
proper
down?
signage
Oh,
showing difficulty levels, showing direction of the park, and yeah, it'll be pretty straightforward when you're on site.
Well, it's very innovative. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, congratulations. When you see that amount of our constituents that are excited about it, and obviously there's some passion here, right here in front of us. Congratulations. It's a great asset, and those kinds of partnerships are amazing and encouraged.
Vice Mayor?
It's not too much more to add, except I like the fact that you put the community together and see what they want. And I knew Parks was tough, but I've never seen one of these before. But it looks like a lot of fun, and I suspect it's going to get a lot of usage. So by what we see in the audience. So again, thanks for that cooperation that you put together. The different parties pulled this off. Thanks.
I'd like to thank you also. It's a method of exercise that gets them out of the house, gets them away from the computers, gets them away from the TV, gets them some exercise. But I want to know who's keeping the Band-Aid box, because I can just visualize once in a while accidents happening there. And it is, as I said, I would never attempt that. Probably not even my childhood, but my children were very into biking and into mounds and built many of launch pads to launch off of through the years. So I know it's just a natural need among young people. They just love the excitement. And I think by TV promoting all of this, I just watched a contest this weekend that was pretty exciting. And you have to have some real guts to do some of the things these young people do. But I see you're keeping the level low. But knowing the Estrella community, I know they will monitor this, and I know they're all very interested in their children. So anything that could possibly be something we need to have some concern about, they'll be right there, I'm sure of that. Or they wouldn't be here tonight to show up. So thanks, community. We appreciate all your cooperation. And Nathan, thank you, and thank you, gentlemen. Let's give a round of applause.
Mayor and Council, one last thing. We anticipate the pump build to last about 3 months roughly, and so we look forward to, as that progresses, to getting you updates as well as inviting you to a ribbon cutting. Okay?
Good. Well, I'm going to watch Vice Mayor Pizzillo ride it at the opening.
Thank you.
On a bike, not his motorcycle.
That's
I'll
right.
donate something to that.
Off the street, so that's even better. Let them have a good, safe place to play. Yeah.
All right, let's go on to the next communication item, and that's a presentation on the upcoming Fix a Leak Week promotion partnership between City of Goodyear and Liberty Water. Sandra Rohde, Water Conservation Specialist, welcome to the dais.
Good evening, Mayor Lord and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you another fun thing that's happening in the City of Goodyear. This year, we're going to offer a new type of incentive to encourage people to save water, particularly in the wintertime. We've got an extraordinary partnership here developed among the Finance Department, the Parks and Recreation Department, the ballpark, our two baseball teams, the Cincinnati Reds and the Cleveland Indians, and the Water Resources Department and Liberty Water. So all households in the City of Goodyear should be eligible if the residents have been present in the house for a year. So what is it exactly we're going to do? We announced in a teaser in Focus this month that there would be something coming called Fix a Leak Week promotion. This week and through January 5th, when people receive their utility bill from the city, they'll receive the further details about how they can participate. And this is right-handed, and I'm left-handed. 1 second. There we go. Here is the utility bill insert that will be showing up in people's mailboxes, coming right up. You'll notice that everyone is properly acknowledged on here. The details are all spelled out. So customers are notified that if they reduce their water usage for 1 month in January or February, they'll be eligible to claim 2 complimentary tickets to a ball game in the week that's called Fix a Leak Week in March. The 16th through the 22nd is a national observance to encourage people to reduce their water usage by fixing leaks. If you're a City of Goodyear customer, your bill will actually say, you fixed a leak, bring this to the ballpark and claim your 2 tickets. If you're a Liberty customer, you'll have to wait until March 6th, and about that time you will receive a special mailing that says, you fixed a leak, bring this to the ballpark to claim your 2 free tickets. You won't get the notice if you didn't become eligible. So I've given people a few tips on how they could reduce their water usage on this bill stuffer. And then, if you're a Goodyear customer, whoop, that was too fast. You would receive this bill statement. You'll notice that it's a pretty good chunk of text there, and it's a little bit hard to read, but it says, you fixed a leak. Hurrah! Claim your tickets, claim your gift at the Goodyear ballpark office. And then it says, bring this along, and if you come on March 16th to 18th and bring this bill, we'll have an additional gift for you at the promo table. I think this is an exceptional opportunity. Nobody else in the Valley, as far as I know, has an offering quite like this to encourage people. It's a very tangible offering and savings, pretty simple. All you have to do is reduce your usage in the City of Goodyear by 1,000 gallons. We can see it on your finance utility bill, and you'll be rewarded.
I have one question. Is there going to be a star on that or any color going around it so when people read the bill won't miss that?
Normally there's nothing in that space. So this is going to be present, and actually if you look up at the space in between the 2 blue lines above it, there's a place where it says, let's see if I got a pointer here. it says how much you use this month, usage. There's a number under there. And it says usage for the same month in the prior year. So if you're interested in participating, you already will kind of be looking at that.
Vice Mayor?
Just to follow up on the mayor's question, is it cost prohibitive, or is it possible on the bill? Because typically, I don't know about the mayor, but when I look at the bill and I'm looking for something specific, anything that jumps out at me is color or bold or something that's different, because I would probably look at this and see the total, and I might even mix that text because of how I go through the process. I guess my question is it cost prohibitive to either put it in a blue ink or something that would kind of stand out when they open the bill that would take their eyes and kind of point it to that direction?
We can only put text in that block. Sorry. There would be a lot of good images to put there to attract people's attention, but that's not an option in our current billing service.
You can't use a different color. I know you can put text in there. You can't use a different
Black and white.
Black and white, okay.
Sorry.
Any other questions? Yes, Councilman Loretano.
I know we've brought this up before too, like to help people save water and see where they're at. I know APS does this and Southwest Gas does it. You get the little bar graph, which I always look at that. For all those bills, I always look at that to say, oh, I use this much more than last year, this much less, and you can compare it. Is that something, obviously you can't do it in this billing cycle, that we can look at? Because that would really help.
And I know I've talked numerous times with my colleagues in finance about this. Our current billing system doesn't allow for that to be printed on our bills. The comparison that you see up there is an improvement. So I always instruct people when I talk to them that they do have a way to see how they're doing just for that 1 month. And they do have a way online to go and see more of their usage. But this is a priority for Water Resource in messaging to help people see that as we move forward.
Vice Mayor Vasillo?
Just a question probably for the manager too. As we go through the ERP system, is this billing system part of that look-see when we implement the new software? And if so, is it something we can look at to maybe enhance some of those possibilities we're talking about?
I know that my finance customer service colleague and I both have expressed interest in that when we get to that part of the ERP.
And I'm seeing a head shake out there by the IT director, so it sounds like that's something you'll be looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, Mayor and Vice Mayor, yes, so it will be part of this ERP overhaul.
Well, I think it's great, and I really appreciate it because when we did some program like this, we weren't included on our side of Goodyear, and Liberty wasn't interested in doing it that time. So good on them that they've decided they're going to join us in trying to save our most precious resource, water. So I thank you, and thank you for the presentation tonight. Is that it? No more questions? Thanks so much. We appreciate it. All right, now is the time for citizens who would like to address the City Council on any non-agenda item. Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
All right, is there anybody in the audience this evening who would like to speak? All right, since there's no speaker cards, we will go on. And to the consent agenda, would the city clerk please read the consent agenda items 6.1 through 6.6 by title only, please.
Item 6.1, approve draft minutes of a regular meeting and a special meeting held on November 10th, 2014, and a regular meeting and a special meeting held on November 17th, 2014. Item 6.2.1, adopt resolution number 14-1678, ratifying the submission of a grant application to the Maricopa County Department of Transportation for improvements to a section of Perryville Road, authorizing city manager to execute documents for grant administration, and authorizing city manager or his designee to take all actions and execute all documents necessary to carry out intent of the grant application and this resolution. Item 6.2.2, adopt resolution number 14-1675, approving an intergovernmental agreement with Maricopa County for improvements to a section of Perryville Road from Van Buren Street North to Arizona Department of Transportation limit, funding for such improvements and future ownership and maintenance of such section of roadway, authorizing city manager to execute IGA, authorizing city manager or his designee to take all actions and execute all documents necessary to carry out the intent of the IGA and this resolution, and approving a budget transfer in the amount of $161,529. Item 6.3, Adopt resolution number 14-1680, authorizing the city manager or designee to execute the memorandum of understanding between the City of Phoenix Police Department and Goodyear Police Department for participation in the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network Program. Item 6.4, approve the use of funds from the fleet replacement budget for the purchase of a total of 3 PM10 certified street sweepers from Freightliner Sterling Western for a total amount of $705,432. Of this total, a maximum of $229,717 will be reimbursed from Maricopa Association of Governments. Item 6.2, 6.5, adopt resolution number 14-1683, authorizing the city manager or designee to execute an intergovernmental agreement with Buckeye Union High School District number 201 for shared use of facilities. Item 6.6, adopt resolution number 14-1688, encouraging members of the Arizona Congressional Delegation to support federal marketplace fairness legislation.
Thank you. Does anyone from the public wish to remove an item on the consent agenda? Does anyone on the council wish to remove an item on the consent agenda? No? All right. Could I please then have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda items 6.1 to 6.6?
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion by Councilman Stipp and a second by Councilman Campbell. A roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Homan?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Good. Let's go on to the business. 7.1, first item is to consider approving the Series 12 liquor license for Woway Asian Cuisine. Sue, we're on to Deputy City Clerk to present.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm happy to be able to present a new Series 12 liquor license for Wok-Wee Asian Cuisine. It's located at 15560 West Roosevelt Street. This is just west of Estrella Parkway and south of Walmart. And this location previously housed a barbecue restaurant. They opened for business in April of 2014, and it's a family-owned and operated business. They've applied for a liquor license because their customers have indicated they would like to have the option of having alcoholic beverages with their meals. And that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you. Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak? Could I please have a motion and a second to approve the request from Ki Ku Zhao, owner-agent of Walkway Asian Cuisine, LLC, for a new Series 12 liquor license number 1207A061. Walkway Asian Cuisine is located at 15560 West Roosevelt Street, number B104, Goodyear, Arizona. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion by Councilman Holman, a second by Vice Mayor Pizzillo. Open for council discussion.
Is our applicant here tonight?
Pardon me?
Is the applicant here?
I'm not sure. They did say they weren't sure if they were going to be able to make the
So
meeting.
the applicant is not here this evening.
No, doesn't look like they
All right.
are.
Is there something you could ask?
I'm good.
Okay, you're good? Okay, then let's go thank you very much, Sue. Let's have roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Homan?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pizzillo?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Great. The next item on business is to consider an amendment to the Recreation Facility Rental Fee Policy. Nathan Torres, Parks and Recreation Director, and David Side, Park Supervisor, to present.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We're happy tonight to present an amendment recommendation to our current rental fee policy. This amendment applies to recreational facilities outside of the ballpark facilities. Why does it not apply to the ballpark facilities? And the answer to that is that the ballpark rental policies already has similar language built into those policies. So what we're recommending tonight is we take some of that language and apply it to the park side of the house. The current policy was established in 2008 and for the most part has worked as intended. However, recently we've noticed that it really lacks flexibility, specifically flexibility in how we can nurture and create partnership opportunities that are win-win for both the user as well as the community as a whole. And so we're hoping that this amendment will provide us that flexibility in recognizing partnerships and encouraging partnerships. You know, we're in the partnership business nowadays, and as you saw earlier from the West Valley Trails Association, we really can do more working with others. And so we're hoping that this amendment will provide us that flexibility. So I wanted to kind of tee things up for the presentation, and I'll now turn things over to David Syed, our Recreation Superintendent.
Thank you, Nathan. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Basically, our rental policy that was passed back in the summer of 2008 created a number of categories based on affiliation and association with the City of Goodyear Parks and Recreation Department. The categories basically ranged from a Category 1, which was essentially internal programs, all the way to a Category 5, which would be a for-profit group that is not a nonprofit, a commercial organization, if you will. And then all other users would fall somewhere in between in those other categories. If you can kind of visualize on that bottom table there, from a left to right basis, if you're a Category 1, you'd basically have free use of the fields, which were our internal programs, all the way up to a Category 5. For example, the field reservations that are listed there go to $25 per hour if that's the category you fall into. In addition to the actual field reservations, there's a menu of items that you can select from if your event or program requires it, such as lights. You can kind of see the sliding scale there again, similar to the field rental policy, as well as the game prep fees, and that would be such as chalking, dragging, lining, some of those type of services. So depending upon your needs, that's where some of those fees would come into play. For the most part, like Nathan mentioned, the policy has met our needs, but in the most recent couple of years, we've noticed a lot of groups are coming to us with suggestions, facility improvements, ideas, things of that sort that they would like to, for example, if we needed some soccer goals, they would be willing to step up and provide those enhancements, which would stay with the field, and we would retain ownership of that after the program goes away. But likewise, we really don't have the flexibility or the ability in our current rental fee policy to recognize that. So by adding the proposed amendment we have before you tonight, that would allow us to do that. A couple of the other policy challenges we've noticed, field preparations. For example, if somebody wanted to come in and chalk the fields themselves, we really don't have language in our policy that allows for it. It kind of seems simple that if you want it, pay for it. If you don't pay for it. But if a group came to us and said, you know, I have lining equipment, I have a supplier that can provide chalk, can my group do that? We really don't have the ability in our current policy to allow for that. And the last bullet point there is just maximizing win-win partnerships. So we try to leverage resources with our community partners as much as we can, definitely stretch our resources as far as we can, and by adding this language would give us an enhanced ability to do so. In addition to the lack of flexibility, our priority-based budgeting emphasis and exercises going through our programs and services, allowing this flexibility would allow us to be able to shift those responsibilities to partner organizations, potentially free up some resources and reallocate those in the most efficient way possible. And lastly, it does link into our recently approved and updated master plan. So I have a couple areas there that I cite that were specifically linked to some of the things I mentioned, such as assisting in ball field maintenance and then determining the user fee guidelines in consideration for public benefit and cost recovery goals. So when we sat down and were made aware of kind of the limitations, we met with legal to see if that was the correct interpretation. Was there another way around that? Basically, the consensus was the easiest way for a short-term fix was to draft amendment language that would allow that flexibility that we currently lack. So we met with legal, we created a resolution, we pitched the resolution and the language and the intent to our Parks and Recreation Commission just last week. They heard our presentation and endorsed that fully, And now we come before you this evening with the recommended resolution. So that gets me to the council recommendation itself. What this will allow us to do is when we're discussing with our community partners and they come to us with alternatives and in-kind contributions, we would be able to recognize that on a dollar-for-dollar basis. For example, just recently we were approached by a swim team group who would like to do some year-round swimming at our Loma Linda pool. We currently have a heater and the capability to heat the pool, but if we were to take on a user group as that, we may need to do some upgrades to our pool heater, and if that outside group was willing to sit down and come to an arrangement where they maybe enhanced our heating capability or funded some of those facility improvements, then we could sit down and see what that would look like on some fee relief. So there's other examples as well out there, but the language really just allows us to have that conversation. Currently, we can't really sit down and even have those discussions because the policy limits us. Next steps, like I mentioned, this is kind of a short-term solution. We do intend to do a comprehensive fee study based on our master plan directives. We are going to do that with public input. We'll get the stakeholder input together. We'll have commission input. We'll do some peer city fee comparisons and make sure that we do a comprehensive Parks and Recreation market study. The drawback to that is that takes time. So in the meantime, what this amendment does is allows us to continue business and working with these outside groups for the best possible win-win solution while that updated fee study runs concurrent with that exercise. So with that, I conclude my presentation and would be more than happy to entertain any questions you may have.
Thank you, David. Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak? Thank you. Will the city clerk please read resolution by title only, please?
Adopt resolution number 14-1679, authorizing an amendment to the recreation facility rental fee policy.
Thank you. Could I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved. Second.
I heard a motion from Councilman Loretano, a second Councilman Campbell. Open for council discussion. Who would like to be first? Councilman Loretano.
I just want to say thank you because obviously the Parks and Recreation was one of the top items for our citizens, as you could see. And, you know, thank you for working with these partnerships so we can do more for our citizens, and I really appreciate it.
Vice Mayor Pizzillo?
Yes, I'd like to echo Councilmember Loretano's comments. But again, I appreciate you thinking outside the box. In the interim, it takes a while to get a study through. And the flexibility, I think, is good. And I like that thought process. The second thing is when you come back with a fee study, also we have a column, typically what percentage of costs we're recovering for those services and what typically is that percentage of cost recovery on an average for the other cities. So we can kind of see what others are doing and what we're recovering as a percentage of cost. We appreciate that.
Councilman Stipp?
You know, to echo this, we're applying common sense to a pretty standard problem, and you know how much I appreciate that. So, thanks for looking out for everybody.
Councilman Holman?
I really appreciate this happening. This has been a concern of mine because we do need to be, most of the groups are, I'm not going to say that, many of the groups that we're working with are people with very, very limited budgets. And so if they can get volunteer, your chalk lining was one of a good example, I think, that way they are not trying to raise funds. So I think that just common sense, good term for it, but thank you very, very much. I think it's an important step.
Well, Nathan and David, we appreciate you being so proactive in taking a look at this and coming forward with this innovative suggestion. And as you said, this was written in 2008. Recreation needs have changed, and they change practically daily. and we thank you very much. I did speak with both Nathan and David regarding this item this afternoon and had asked them if they could informally just let council know if it was working and how it worked. But then Councilman Vice Mayor Pizzillo added a whole bunch of other stuff. So we're on the same wavelength. We would just like to know if, in fact, it's working, how it's being accepted by whomever the recipients are, and see if there's any other way that we can streamline other areas. But make it simple so we can read it, not a bunch of figures.
My comments are, it's nice to know the government is now becoming a little more flexible. It pleases me, and not only that we are being realistic on public-private partnerships, because this, in a sense, is a partnership sometimes with your community. It could be with a business. I think that's admirable. I would tell you, MAG has finally accepted that they're going to have to be doing more of that, so we're kind of in line with the political thought. And the biggest thing is we're not going to lose opportunities. And in the past, we have had opportunities that would benefit the city, but because of the stringent rules and the way we have run things, it didn't allow for it. So congratulations on this. I appreciate it, and we look forward to the study and the results of that. Thank you. Okay, could I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Campbell? Aye. Councilmember Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Homan?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
The last item business is to consider approving the revisions to the City of Goodyear Employee Policy and Procedure Manual. Jeannie Ruddy, Total Compensation Boy, I need, what did I do?
Mayor, I think if I'm going to recuse myself on just part of it, I have to recuse myself on all of it. So.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So at this moment, for 7.3, we're going to, Councilman Loretano asked to be recused, and so she will leave the room. Okay. No, you just have to leave the room. That's it. Thank you for the reminder. I thought I could do it after, but anyway, welcome, Jeannie. We're ready for your presentation.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Lord and council members. Human Resources is continually looking at policies by implementing best practices and new labor law and enhancing words for clarity. And tonight I'm here before you to recommend some policy changes. First, I'd like to start with Policy 200, Employee. Does it go down?
Yeah, just the top will bend.
Oh, there we go.
But you want to push the button in the middle at the bottom, the red. No, do it again. There's a button right here.
Nope, nope.
You got it. You got it.
Thank you.
I'm not scared of him.
Good job. Good job.
Always me, technical difficulties. Our first policy is Policy 200, Employee Compensation. And we are recommending that the policy be changed to mirror the promotion policy for reclassification to a higher level. A reclassification is when a position level of classification is reviewed based on the deletion or addition of duties and responsibilities. In this case, we're looking at when duties and responsibilities are being added. So we'd like to change this policy from a 2.5% increase or the entry of the new range to 5% or the entry of the new range to mirror our promotion policy. The benefits of making these changes are more equitable increases for our employees who move to a position with higher levels of responsibility. It's really a fairness issue. It helps maintain pay equity for our internal staff in like positions, and it supports our goal for developing and retaining internal talent who assume higher level positions through a reclassification. And let me give you an example. A department may have a reorganization, and it's a necessity to include responsibility duties to a position, which would add responsibility to that position, and the employee basically would have no choice, but they would be adding more responsibility. And in fairness, it would be the same as if that person was promoted to that higher level position. The next item we have under Policy 200 is to remove the titles for uniform allowance and move them to the Administrative Guideline 210. The benefits of this change are the ability to timely address uniform allowance issues impacted by organizational restructures or when other disparities are found, or basically the title is just simply rechanged. An example of that is right now in our current policy, a title is listed as Property and Evidence Custodian, and right now that title is Property Officer. So sometimes those changes are necessary, and it's easier to put them on the administration side. The third item under Policy 200 is to revise the shift differential pay to include all non-exempt or hourly employees and not just positions within the police department who work second or third shift. And this does exclude 24-hour shift positions. And at the present time, this change would add 2 equipment operators, and these positions are street sweepers that sweep the streets early in the morning. They start at 2:30 a.m. Are there any questions on Policy 200? Right now, yes. Our next policy is Policy 1000, Employee Safety and Health.
Is that how we're handling this? Because we're putting this all on one.
After I read the resolution, then you can have your council discussion.
They're still not to make a response until we move, because that one resolution is everything, all these.
It's all in one
subject matters.
resolution, that's correct.
I just want to clear that up, because I saw people making that move. So, okay. Go ahead, Jean.
Okay, thank you. We would like to add electronic cigarettes to be used only in designated areas like other tobacco products. And we recommend, as right now we don't know what the health implications are of secondhand vapor, and so we're recommending to add this to our policy. In Policy 700, Professional and Personal Conduct, we're recommending that we eliminate the residency requirements for all positions. The benefits of this change are better align us with our benchmark cities, where 5 out of 10 have no residency requirement or only the requirement of the city manager, as you can see on the chart. And a majority of our West Valley cities have no requirement, which is the city of Glendale, Peoria, and Surprise. The benefit is more effectively for recruitment and retention of executive leadership positions. The city struggles with hiring these executive leadership positions. In addition, it becomes a hardship to current employees and their families who need to live by family support systems, who have 2-income households, or want to keep their kids in the same school. The last item we are bringing forward to Council is the policy on political activity. On the next 2 slides, we have researched political activity for our benchmark cities, and it is included on these slides. The data is specifically for city elections, except in the case of the state of Arizona, which is on the last column, and it refers only to off-duty or not in uniform when the activity is being performed. The political activity is categorized in 3 ways: N for no, Y for yes, and NS for not specified in the policy. This item is being brought forward for Council's review and discussion.
Thank you. Sorry, I was so involved in my papers here. A little pause. Would anybody in the audience like to speak? Are there any speaker cards? Because I missed that one.
No, Mayor.
Thank you. Would the city clerk please read resolution? Read the resolution by title only, please.
Adopt Resolution 14-1682, amending Policy 200, Employee Compensation, Policy 700, Professional and Personal Conduct, and Policy 1000, Employee Safety and Health, as an amendment to the City of Goodyear Policy and Administrative Guidelines Manual of 02/01/2004.
Thank you. Could I please have a motion, a second?
So moved.
Had a motion by Councilman Holman and a second by Councilman Stipp. So it's going to be open for council discussion, and I'm going to take mayor's privilege to begin this. I don't do it often, do I?
No, you don't.
All right,
That's
and I'm
okay.
going to read it because I want to be sure that I'm stating it accurately. And my comments are only on the policy 700, the political one. Okay, the last one. So I feel like I need to explain myself because when this item was brought to me as your mayor, it was brought to me by the police union. And so we sat down and talked. I'm sorry, I said police, fire unit. I do it every time. I think of my fire and police as one unit. Sorry, I apologize that, the fire union. And so when they said the proposal, I, at that time, was not in favor of their proposal. And so it ended up that the mayor did not put it on the agenda. I said I would like council to weigh in on that. And so that's how it got onto the agenda. But and during that discussion, I was very quick to make a remark that I somewhat regret. And so as a mayor, I feel the responsibility of what I say unintended consequences. And by that statement I made, there have been unintended consequences. And the statement I made was, well, if we do it for one department, then we need to do it for the entire city. I did that without any forethought. I did that without investigating. So for that, I regret. I also regret the confusion that I gave to the staff members that I talked to. That was not my intent. I believe in our staff, and I think we believe in all that we have given to our staff. And I appreciate our fire, who does they do many good things for our public. The unions also do that, and so does the police department, our public works. All of those departments work for our whole staff. Every employee works very hard for the city of Goodyear. So I'm going to address this one in particular. So in previous elections, our Goodyear City Council has run for office on a nonpartisan ballot. Our state government, which we are mimicking on these decisions, is elected on a partisan and is adherent to a political party. The definition of partisan per Webster is adherent of a party, or known as the gorilla in the room, or a resistant movement. The non-prefix before partisan means an elected body must make decisions on merit of the issue and not the political will of the party. The city manager is politically impartial and the administrator of all departments in the city and responsible for supervising and implementing policies adopted by council. Our city manager and many of our staff members belong to ICMA, International City Managers Association, which is the code of ethics with guidelines. It states under Tenet 7, refrain from all political activities which undermine public confidence in professional administrators. Refrain from participation in the election of the members of the employee legislative body. From all the information I have recently acquired in my research, in my opinion, allowing all city government employees to participate in all of the categories presented under this Policy 700 will only diminish the public's confidence in the elected body. Ability to be impartial, I'm going to say that once more, will diminish the public confidence in the elected body's ability to be impartial. Employees are in the service industry. They are employed by our tax-paying citizens of Goodyear. And on behalf of the citizens, I believe we need to keep the political machine out of the City Hall. I have had the opportunity this week to speak to 5 West Valley mayors separately to discuss this issue using a chart presented to us tonight. And not one mayor felt this was the right direction for Goodyear in today's climate. Councilman and government has a good reputation in Goodyear. It is admired throughout the valley. That statement was made by one of the mayors I spoke to. People look up to Goodyear. The name is out there all the time, and people are mimicking and looking for us for leadership. I believe the results of the citizen survey substantiate all that I have said. I always believe in compromise, and you know that, Council, and I'm always open to conversation and discussion of any sort. But I want it with transparency, and that is why I mentioned the parties tonight. It was not to be vindictive, to go after anybody. It's just to disclose it publicly, because I feel very strong about this. And many citizens do not understand what the process has been when public services such as a union support you. They don't understand it. They don't know what the process is. And so it does cause me some concern that the public has not weighed in on this also. So anyway, what I want tonight is that I'm a compromiser, but there are some things that in this I cannot agree with. But I want this. This is also your vote and your discussion, and there's no animosity here from the mayor. You say and vote for what you feel, but I want you to be careful and remember. And I want it in big neon lights. Public. What is good for the citizens? How are they going to benefit? Is this going to hinder them? Would we have in our city incidents where there would be some political talk, some pressure, some director's pressure? And I hear over and over, but it's their constitution. It's their right to do this. Well, they have a right to vote. They, in the end, vote. It may not be voting for the candidate elected to find which candidate they want, but when it comes down to it, they receive the ballot and they vote. So I don't feel like it's taking away from that. It's, in my view, I don't think they're taking away from their First Amendment, because in the end, they do right. And we, again, are not the state. We are a city of 73,000 people, or 74, not to the population of the state. So now I'm turning it over to you. I didn't make this statement to prevent any conversation or anything, so you need to speak up. So who would like to be the first one? I would. All right, Councilman Campbell.
Well, I'd like to, if I may speak again besides this one. I have a concern about eliminating the residency requirement. And if I understand this correctly, and Jeannie, I apologize for not talking with you this afternoon so that I understood it better. Are we saying that no one that works for our city, should this pass, would have to live in Goodyear? No one.
That's correct. You would have the opportunity, if you preferred, to include it in a contract if you felt it was necessary.
Well, I would hate for my chief of police to live in Surprise. I'll tell you that right now. And I would hate for my city manager to be in Ahwatukee and be commuting. If they don't care enough about our city to live in our city, then I think we need to have a conversation about it. But I just am not in favor personally of just this part of saying anybody can work for Goodyear, but you don't have to live here.
I think maybe the challenge with making it a requirement, other cities have found, and we're seeing it too, is in our recruitment efforts. So our recruitment efforts have been very, very difficult for our executive level positions. We even have challenges now once employees, our current policy, for example, for our directors is, and deputy city managers and city managers, to live in the city. And sometimes what happens is those positions are filled and they're in the position for several years, and then they grow their family and realize that they need a bigger house. So to acquire a bigger house in our current policy, if you move out of Peoria, which is a neighboring city, and you have to move to Goodyear, and now you're uprooting your children from their schools that they love, and some of those are the challenges that would be affecting the employee's family.
Well, I'm sympathetic, but I'm not that sympathetic.
I actually, I can understand your concern, Councilman Campbell, but I have to tell you, looking at some of the people that wanted to come and interview in Goodyear for jobs in the other cities, who were extremely qualified, sometimes more qualified than the people out of the area that came to speak with us on that. So I understand the security of having the fire chief, but even fire chiefs have difficulty finding homes. And again, I think most important is most of the people that come to work for us have children, and they're in school. So I can see that what a dilemma that is, that they have to pull the children out of school and move. And even moreover than that, the investment in housing, it's not easy to sell your home and sell it within a short period of time and move in. So I think those were some of the considerations, and that most of the cities are easy access. So I know in some departments, like you worry about the fire, but with internet and iPhones and all the things that are out there now, it's quick verbal response. So that's one of them. Anybody else want to come? Councilman Stipp.
Jeannie, can you go back to the residency slide? On this particular issue, I don't worry necessarily very similar to the Scottsdale situation, the city manager, city attorney, city judge, our judge. Those are the three that report to the council. Those are the three that we have contracts with. So we can, through the work agreement process, we can require those folks to be city residents. And I don't know, quite honestly, I don't know if I want the judge actually living in the city or not. He probably want to be living somewhere else. But the city attorney and the city manager.
Does he live in the city?
No.
He doesn't live in there. I didn't think he did.
I wouldn't necessarily want him to, because who wants to issue judgment in the same the same place? But anyway, for the manager and the attorney, that may be we need to get access to those folks pretty quickly. The police chief, fire chief, they have deputies, but that doesn't exclude the finance director, the parks director, HR. I mean, anybody. I'm looking at everybody sitting on this side of the room. I don't know that it's that important. And then looking at this particular list, and these are the people that this is who we're gonna steal from, and this is who's gonna steal from us. So if we are the ones with the most restrictive residency requirement, we are at an absolute disadvantage, and we're going to spend time in the next few months talking about salaries and all the rest of that to quote unquote remain competitive, and yet our biggest disadvantage is the residency requirement. So I think we really need to take that into consideration when we're thinking about the residency requirement issue.
Goodyear's current policy is if you're moving from out of state and you are offered a position, you are required to move within the Goodyear city boundaries. The positions of city manager, deputy city manager, and department heads. The other part of the policy is if you're hired for the position and you're currently in the Phoenix metropolitan area, you are not required to relocate. However, if the person in that position sells his or her home, then they are required to relocate to Goodyear.
So if the next person who's going to be the next director, whoever that is, lives in Chandler, whose kids are already in school, they can stay in Chandler today. But when they outgrow that home that they're in, or their kids move away and they need a smaller home and they decide to sell it, they have to move here. Is that correct?
Mayor Lord, Councilmember Stipp, that's correct.
So if the spouse of that employee happens to have a job at Intel, now we're asking a big sacrifice on the family, and I think for what? I think at the end of the day, that's what we have to ask ourselves: is what is the value of that? Other than we can control who that staff is, and I think again, I'm going to go back to when we talk about attractiveness as a community. This is part of it: benefits, salary, and this.
Several of our executive level positions we've had to post several times to find qualified candidates. And in this case, again, there are many dual income families that hold executive positions.
Most people are nowadays dual.
And when maybe someone has a Central Phoenix home and one works in Scottsdale and one works in Goodyear, it works out for the family. But again, if they have to, move to a new residence, upgrade in their home, then they would be required to move to Goodyear, which then would put the spouse.
And in some cases, they're renting apartments or rooms here. So they.
It made no difference. We moved. I moved a graduating senior to Japan in the middle of his senior year at midterm. So, I've been there, done that. But I'm just saying, me personally, I'd like my city manager to live in the city as my police chief and fire chief. And I guess if we do contracts with them, if the rest of the council is willing, we can stipulate that. And if they're not willing, then we just don't do it. But
That's when
Mayor.
you're recruiting, that's kind of a hard thing to put out there that I'm sure the applicant will run.
well, there's only 3 cities that don't do that.
Councilman Holman?
Well, I just wanted to kind of address the question Bill asked, and that is, what do you gain? And I think to really know your city and to really have the passion for your city, that I think the very top leadership positions need to have. And I think that's what you get, because you're not, we hope, I would think, that the leaders are participating in their community at some level as a volunteer in the school or whatever. And I think you're splitting your loyalties. And I do think there's value to being a resident of your city. So that would be my answer to that thing. I know for a fact, for 18 years, I drove from Glendale to Goodyear to work and realized that if I'm going to be respectful and really, truly put my heart into my community, I needed to move to Goodyear. And that's what I did. And that was 16 years ago. I'm just inputting that. That to me is a serious value.
I think you've got a valid point there. I can't argue with that. And I see that you did make a commitment by you running for office, so you even doubled that commitment. Bill?
Mayor, just a slightly different perspective, having served as a community's fire chief, obviously living in that community, you're never off. You're never, ever off.
Been there.
It's not that I don't mean to be disrespectful, but it is absolutely not the same. When you have that, when you're in that community, you're never off. So you can quickly sour as well. And I think that's the other side of the issue that we have to be concerned about. That's all I'm.
This is one of the issues, Bill, that we really vehemently, I lived in a glass house for 30 years. So I know what that is. I know you can't go to the grocery store. I know you can't go to church. I had people at church handing me checks. But that's part of being seriously integrated into your community, in my perspective.
Vice Mayor?
I don't know what the solution for this particular issue is, but I think from a recruitment standpoint, especially in today's economy, I would like for us to be getting the best and the brightest, because I think ultimately that's what drives our city. I see from a contract standpoint, we have 3 people who we contract with, and if it's that important for council as a whole, we could require them to live in the city. But I think we hinder ourselves by not allowing, as Councilmember Stipp had mentioned earlier, if you got somebody really strong in Chandler whose wife works in Chandler, whose kids are in Chandler, that you want to recruit to the city, and one of the requirements, they have to move here at some point, and they have a wife working over there, I think you're going to lose that candidate. So I think being flexible in this case, I think is important, especially in today's very competitive, market out there. So I don't have a problem with 22. And not only that, if they already live there, they don't have to move here until they go to sell the house currently. So all we're saying right now is that they won't have to move, which means, number one, if they were looking for a house, they're not necessarily have to move here. They can still keep their kids in school, et cetera. And I think that's important.
I don't know, because the way this is set up, and I should have taken note of that and said something to you today, but you have left us as a council not agreeing on these things and yet under one vote.
Mayor, Lord, and members of council, if there was a change you wanted to make or to that policy, you just need to make an amendment to the motion.
So as we finish the discussions, then let's go back. Is that agreement? And then we'll make a motion, okay? And you, city clerk's got some jobs here to write it up here quickly when you hear. So, okay. Any other questions on that one? So I guess we can. Where are we at?
Is it on the residency one?
Yeah. Do you have any more?
Not on residency.
Okay. All right. So next item that we'll.
Was Councilmember Campbell done?
Well, my next question was.
Yeah, that's.
I have a little question on all of them. Okay, so back to the electronic cigarettes, the vapor product, where you said to be used only in designated, is that designated smoking areas?
Yes.
They're going to be put
Designated
outside
tobacco.
or wherever you have the other folks who smoke go?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. That was my last question. Thank you, Councilmember Stipp.
All right, Councilman Stipp.
But you had a question on everyone.
Oh, well, I was going to wait till you spoke to speak to the other one.
Everybody knows I have an opinion.
Would you like to repeat that?
Yeah. This is not a shock.
Doesn't matter. I'm going to be last.
All right. The only item that I have to talk about is the political activity one.
The what, Bill?
The political activity.
All right, 7.3.
Yeah. This has been, for me personally, a very challenging discussion as well. I think when I first heard about it, I was thankful that it was coming forward finally. As I expressed one night, this is the first community I have ever worked in my 30 years of local government that did not allow political activity of any sort, and was shocked by that when I came here in 2001. As we start to have the discussions, and as the mayor pointed out, having spoken to other mayors, you start talking to other people and start going through it. Now this whole flood of reality starts to come through. Even in the current position that I hold today, very frustrated by the amount of influence that the employees have over the elected board, and whether that was healthy or not. And that was that weighed a lot into where I went. So I started doing some research, and I'm sorry this is going to be long. Councilmember Campbell, you said to me the other night, do it in 15 words or less. Well, it's going to be a little longer than that.
I appreciate tonight a lot of words. I want us to
I
really.
didn't really say 15.
No, I know, but essentially, anyway.
We're going to let them be long in tooth tonight, okay?
So, and I didn't write the whole thing out, so that's probably half the problem. I told you guys that a month ago. I should have written it all down. So anyway, the issue is really, for me, has been about constitutional rights. And ironically, in this master's program, we are studying the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists and what brought the Constitution forward and what brought the Bill of Rights forward. And the Constitution was set, the country was to be based on this concept of citizen involvement, and that's what it was based upon. The Anti-Federalists were against the Constitution initially because it did not protect individual rights. It appeared to be geared toward protecting state and federal governments, and it wasn't set to protect the individuals. So the Anti-Federalists go through this whole movement. That's how the Federalist Papers get written, and at the end of the day, the Anti-Federalists push and say, hey, we need a Bill of Rights. And that's what gets added to the Constitution. And the very first one of those rights is the First Amendment, which is the right of free speech. And that's a big deal. At the end of the day, people have the right to free speech. There's some language in the, and I'm not a lawyer, but I found it to be clearly found it to be very interesting in the Citizens United case that talks about the First Amendment providing that Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. Section 441B's prohibition on corporate independent expenditures an outright ban of speech, and that's really what Citizens United was about corporate freedom of speech. But it goes on to talk about, because speech is an essential mechanism of democracy, it is the means to hold officials accountable to the people. Political speech must prevail against laws that would suppress it by design or inadvertence. In other words, we need to protect it. Laws burdening such speech are subject to strict scrutiny, which requires the government to prove that the restriction furthers a compelling interest and is narrowly tailored to achieve that interest. And I think when we look at what we're expressing tonight in this political policy, is we are reaffirming our hold on free speech. We are telling our employees, you cannot even express an opinion, you cannot even attend a meeting to learn about the candidates of your political office. That's what that's what our current policy says. That is absolutely a stranglehold on their First Amendment rights. And at the end of the day, that's what this is about. Now, there are a number of provisions as we go from this slide to the next slide, that there are things in there that we may or may not want all of our employees to do. So I'm not necessarily advocating we're going to green light the entire thing, that maybe there is a middle of the road here. There are other benchmark cities that have recognized they're going to let employees be what employees be and let employees do what they want to do. The whole point of what we're supposed to do is protect and defend the Constitution. That's what we all swear to when we take the oath of office. And this issue is truly about defending the Constitution. It's not about limiting people's right to free speech. It's not about limiting the city manager's ability. I think the mayor, you kicked this off with the discussion about partisanism, and the decision should be based on merit and not the will of the party, and that is absolutely the case. There are a number of activities that occur in this city, both above and below board, that affect decision making. It happens every single time we sit up here, whether it be conversations that we have with our neighbors who turn into a special interest group, or the special interest groups that already exist within the city. We have them. They're not necessarily identified as a group, but we have special interest groups in the city, and we listen to them. We listen to them a lot. As a matter of fact, a lot of the time we've been guided against, one individual sitting behind a computer. And we base decisions based on what one person is going to say. So to think that that by magically making the employees not part of the process, we're going to save ourselves something, I think is a fantasy. I wish it was possible.
Can I just interject
Oh, yeah.
something on that one? Is that I want you were right on your statement, except the cooperation with the people that have that's individual you're talking about. Our decisions have been made each time giving more information out to the public. So it hasn't been giving that individual his way or his right of, he had his right of saying whatever he wants to say, but we also have a right as a council to be sure that we're getting correct information out to the public. And so I'd like to just add that in.
I appreciate that, because half of what this particular individual says is wrong anyway. But in any event, we have to ask ourselves, and I think it was the question that the mayor posed: is the public benefited? And I would reverse that and say, is the public harmed? Is the public harmed by residents who live here and people that work here? Are they harmed by them having their First Amendment right? if we say is the public benefited, I would say yes, because we are engaging people in their First Amendment right to participate in the political process. Is the public harmed? And I would say yes, the public is harmed because the city is intentionally withholding people's rights to participate in the public process. And I think as a government body, we have an obligation to make sure that our employees who happen to be our residents have a right to participate in part or all of the process, whatever we decide. But they should have a right to be able to participate in some of it. And I'll leave with this. Justice Thurgood Marshall said in a case about First Amendment, vigilance is necessary to ensure that public employers do not use authority over employees to silence discourse, not because it hampers public functions, but simply because superiors disagree with the content of the employee's speech. And every one of our employees has the right to make a speech, make a statement, sign a petition, show up at a meeting to find out who the people are that are going to run the city that they live in. They have that right. And we should not take that away. And I don't think I could have said it, certainly not any better than Thurgood Marshall did.
Well, and so just before I pass it on to someone else, I totally agree with you on the point you made. And if everybody has looked over this, and I starred them, express an opinion, absolutely. Attend meetings, becoming informed concerning candidates for public office, absolutely. Sign nomination or recall petition, absolutely. And those are the ones that I personally focus on. So now I turn it over to someone else. Councilman Holman.
I did have a folks. Okay. I did have a question, just for information, and that is there are several areas that are green in our in this chart, and I was curious. My curiosity is it been going more to green, or are the green areas people who have been allowing their employees to participate, have they made changes to to go the other direction? Does anybody know the answer to that question?
Can you, before you do this, because I meant to have this done, is that I know Peoria has a different process. They have a city manager's agreement. Can somebody address that? So why you see all of those green, yes, I can tell you the mayor who I spoke to was adamant of not doing this. So go ahead.
I'm going to take a step back and just explain how we got to this chart here.
Can you move that microphone down a little bit further to your...
I'm shorter than Jeannie.
Yeah, I know you are.
How we got to this chart, we asked for all of the current policies from all of our benchmark agencies in order to look at what we had right now. Where the movement is and where it's going to, we did not ask that question. But this is what we had from the cities, and as we went through it, we sat down with legal and we went through all of the policies and we looked at each of these areas. And either they were stated very clearly as to what they allowed or it wasn't, and that's why you see the various. So I cannot answer the question, are they moving or changing? We looked at what their current policies are at. I can answer with Peoria. When we looked at, and under Peoria's structure, the city manager has the ability to change policy. It does not have to go to council. And when we looked at Peoria's under the charter, it was very restrictive. But the city attorney wrote an opinion, quoted the charter, then wrote an opinion that seemed to be more open and flexible than what the charter stated. And so we, after reviewing that with legal, made a determination that we believe that's probably what they're doing or some of the practice, while this charter was very restrictive in what they were able to do. So again, this is a point in time, and after reading all of the policies, this was our interpretation of those.
Okay, that you just wave your hand over it and it goes off, and it's so I'm staying far away. That would have been my guess, and I just was looking for some kind of affirmation of what I was thinking. So the other thing, I so agree with what Bill stated. I just think it's so wrong that our policy is so very restrictive. It would hurt my heart, I know, to work for an organization. And it's not just cities, it's education, and they are not allowed to on or off duty. They have very strict things but I just have thought over the years that was just so wrong. And the other thing is, I mean, if there are, if you have philosophical challenges with employees doing it, if because of an organization that you really respect and want to be a part of, and you don't have to. You know what I'm saying? If someone feels that there's a pressure involved, if they're asked to sign a petition or whatever, they don't have to. That's still part of their freedom of speech. But I think they should have the ability to if it is something that they want.
As long as it doesn't cause any undue pressure or uncomfortable position within the office, within that office. Okay, and that concerns me. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, you were on.
Oh, those were just the 2 points I wanted to make, but I just feel strongly about it as well. That it's just not our job to restrict people's freedom of speech.
Councilman Campbell? Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was Vice Mayor. I apologize. Vice Mayor Pizzillo. I'm sorry, Joe.
I don't see it as an association issue. I see it more of an individual rights, and here's the reason why. Police and fire associations have networks throughout the state. Whether we adopt this or not, in any election, they can pull resources from anywhere in the state. And typically that's what they do. They'll pull it from another city because they're not able to participate in art, but they can anywhere. It doesn't change that. I see this as individuals. And as far as undue pressure within the city itself, first of all, this policy, if they're doing anything politically on the job or in uniform, that's in violation of policy. Is that not right? So if they're doing anything internally, either pressure with another employee or even trying to put pressure on the council, which number one is policy. We're by charter prevented from getting involved in the administration. So right there, that's in violation of policy, okay? Or in violation of our charter. If we would take that undue influence from an employee who wanted us to get involved with something that's happening administratively, that's a no-no for our charter. So I don't see it as that. I don't see, to me, whenever I make a decision, I'm sure like everybody else does there, I make it for the long-term best interest of the city, period. No matter who is approaching. I mean, we have people here coming up for us every day on the dais, whether it's realtors, whether it's lawyers, whether it's somebody in economic development, whether it's an association, all special interest groups with all an issue before us. But you're telling me that an individual individual employee, just because they happen to get paid by the city, which in turn, they're getting value for those dollars. We have people collecting trash. We have people, making sure our water's clear. We have people on the streets making sure that it's safe to drive. All these people are doing something of value to the community that their taxes go to. No different than what they work on. It just happens to be the taxpayers are paying. But they're not getting nothing for the service. They're providing a service to the taxpayers as a whole. So you're telling me that if we get rid of this, that they can't participate just because they happen to be the city? First of all, they can't do it at work. First, they can't do it in uniform. Can't put any pressure individually on any of us because number one, that's in violation. We can't take up that pressure and act on it because that's in violation of the charter. I don't see a problem. I think Stipp actually laid it out pretty well and how he hit his points on there.
So
I think it's a fairness issue for me.
I want to clarify one issue. So since we talked about it, and we have to talk about it, we have to talk about the fire union. And I know I was supported by them. They're very supportive, and I appreciate it. But it's, from my recollection, boy, I am really having a hard time tonight. Anyway, I remember that the people that walked the streets of Goodyear from the fire were not living in Goodyear. They were fire from another city.
They might.
They did not wear a Goodyear shirt. So I need to know under this policy, is that what this is about? Is this part of it to change that? To wear
they wouldn't be
their own shirt
No.
that says Goodyear. So that has to be, because when it doesn't say this in there, but I know that was part of the presentation and part of the desire. So I kind of just want to, I mean, if we're going to talk about this, let's really get down to the nitty gritty. So, Joe?
Mayor, it's my understanding there can be no linkage to the city, period. Is that correct? They can't be out in their city uniform. They can't be wearing any city logos. Am I missing something here? There can be no tie to the city. This is their personal time and their personal opinion.
Are we into something we're not supposed
No,
to?
no, that's fine. Mayor, Lord, council members.
Mayor, yes.
And Joe, you asked that question on Friday, and it does say not on city time nor in city uniform. Uniform is not specifically defined. So if you wanted to be clear that it was not wearing, a polo or logo shirt or anything it identifies, we may need to add some language.
I want
that.
anything that would actually identify him as working for the city, period. So that would mean a city logo shirt.
Well, right now it says uniform. So if
I
council
know,
wanted
but
to add
that's not a
language,
uniform.
we could
There's a
change
lot of people in parks and et cetera that may have just a parks logo. But to me, that designates the city, and I don't want anybody inferring that it's city out there, whatever they may be doing. So that have to go away, at least from my perspective.
That's kind of one of those issues that we have to address. We have to address that issue. And when I said to you about, and I'm not up here to win something, okay? I'm just up here to solve something. I just want to make that known. But, when I talked about the public, we have 526 employees now?
527 authorized.
27. Oh, okay, authorized. That's a good force. That is a huge ad hoc committee. That is possibilities now that we never had before, that they could, on their off hours, form that. So I just want the public to know and be aware. Again, if nothing else out of this meeting comes public, information, so if they are aware of this. So they could interpret. Let me use an example. Maureen, I'm just going to use you an example. And I know Joe and I have talked about this before, but you're a city clerk. The candidate comes into you with the signatures and all of his paper. Granted, it's public record, okay? But you are the keeper. You have to be careful that everything is separated and done correctly. And if we don't get something and report in time, we get fined, right? Okay, there's a lot of things connected with your office. And I would think that would be an office to be very difficult to handle if this happened, where the city employees would be able to do some of these things. So I think that's could happen. I don't think that all of these are bad. Not bad. I can't say they were bad. I'm just cautious about them. So,
Mayor.
Yes, Bill.
I think it was. I think you were the one who mentioned it. The City Managers Association has a code of ethics that prohibit them from being involved. So even if we were to pass, green light everything, the manager and his staff will not participate in the political at least if they want to stick with the code of ethics, they're not going to participate.
It'll be below directors and managers.
Well, no, that's their decision. That's the manager and everyone who's in the ICMA. If they want to follow the code of ethics, they choose not to do that. I would imagine that the Clerks Association probably has one that's extremely similar, if not more restrictive, because of their, as you point out, their role in that. And everybody else, the Police Chiefs Association may have one. The Fire Chiefs Association may say something about political activity, and all the directors may say, "I'm not going to get involved. But that's their choice." Where the parks worker or the public works foreman or the mechanic, or throw whoever you want in there, may say, "You know what? It does matter to me." And for us to sit here and pretend that when the neighbor comes over and says, "Hey, who are these guys that are running? What should we do?" Don't think they're not giving an opinion. I think we're kidding ourselves. That we need to bring this thing we need to bring it out of the dark, and we need to bring it in and sanction some of that activity and allow them to express their First Amendment right.
So do you think that going through each of these political activities and having an opinion on them, are you saying all of them are acceptable?
I think
Are you suggesting to go through each of them?
I'm going to throw it out there. I don't know that soliciting for contributions or making contributions and circulating nominating petitions, those three may not be necessarily in the best interest of the city, particularly the one about soliciting funds. All the rest, First Amendment.
I'm in total agreement with you. Those are the ones I had started and my concerns were about.
So I would make this is what I heard earlier. I'm going to make a motion.
Don't move until I get to speak.
Oh, okay.
If you don't mind, I haven't been
go
asked to
ahead.
speak yet. Thank you very much. As a retired wife, or a wife of a retired Air Force officer, I was never allowed to participate in any type of an election for 26 years. Yet I worked as a volunteer and lived in my communities at many, many bases, and I could not even participate in any of the dialogue on who to elect for school boards. And yet these were the very people who were influencing my children, and I felt that I had a right to speak, but I was precluded because my husband was in the military, and because he was, I was, even though I wasn't. So I didn't understand why this city would limit the activity of an employee, because when an employee goes home, it's their free time. They should be allowed to do whatever they want to do within reason and lawfully, whether it be talking to a school board, a library board, a park board, or whatever. They can contribute to our city. This political activity doesn't just deal with the city of Goodyear. I would think it would deal with any election held within our city, whether it was school board or otherwise. And if they live in our city, they ought to be able to have the privilege and the right to speak up, to vote, to petition, to walk the precincts, to do whatever they need to do, and to find candidates that they would want to hold elective office regardless of what the office was. So I understand why you would not want them to do contributions to candidates, I guess, although I can remember the first time I could make a contribution, and I was thrilled to death. It was $25, and it was to a school board candidate, and she won. But I was never allowed to do that before, and I don't know why we would not want them to do it. You're not going to stop. If you're trying to stop the unions, I don't think this doesn't have anything to do with them. This is individual city employees. So the unions would still make contributions if they wanted to, because that's a separate entity. And when they're out walking precincts, they're not wearing a Goodyear logo. They're wearing the logo of their fire union or their police union, and it does not have a Goodyear symbol on it. So, I mean, I don't want to mix the apples and the oranges, but I want to give our employees every right that I have and that any American has, which is the freedom of speech and to participate in a political activity. That's what our country was founded on. And we need to ensure that we protect their right to speak and to be a part of it.
Well,
And
Councilman
I'm done.
Campbell, I was under the same reign that you were, and was never able, we couldn't do it. And in fact, most of the time, we didn't get a ballot.
No, we couldn't even
so
vote.
most of the time, they would not send it overseas, and they would not send out of state. And so and you had to have a home state. Mm-hmm. So if you voted, if you were allowed, it was going to be in that state, not the state you're living in. So you never could, and that's why being on a council on your retirement in a place you live is a joy.
really
and
is.
that's why we can say we love what we're doing. So, okay, so where are we at
All
on
right.
this?
So, Mayor, I want to make a motion to amend the original motion, which was read like an hour ago, to change policy 700, political activity, to include A, express an opinion, B, attend meetings for the purpose of becoming informed concerning the candidates for public office and the political issues, C, sign a nomination or recall petition, and F, engage in activities to advocate for the election or defeat of a candidate.
That's on the next page.
Yep.
Okay, so do you want to repeat that one more time?
A, B, C, and F.
Which eliminates
Oh, you can make me do the
and
math
G.
in public. D, E, and G.
Call express A, express an opinion A, and right underneath that, attend meetings B, and right under that is sign nominations or recall, that's C, right? Where did we get D?
F.
Oh, we went to F. Oh,
So no D.
No, I did not. My motion
And
does
no
not
E.
include D.
oh, I see, D would be the next one, so F. So the next one, circulate candidate, that's D.
No, D is make contributions. E is circulate candidate.
Oh, I missed
M,
it, yeah.
those are the no-goes.
Okay.
My motion is simply to include A, B, C, and F.
Yep. Madam Mayor and Councilmember Stipp, just for clarification, in just looking down the road, if you're going to go down that path as far as amending the ordinance, may I suggest that you keep D, E, and G, but put may not in front of those paragraphs. My concern is down the road, if you lead F, engage in activities to advocate the election or defeat of any candidate, that's a pretty broadly worded statement without the restrictions on those other
Other ones?
activities.
Okay.
So if the motion were
I'll
to
amend
include-
my amendment to include may not on D, E, and G.
Okay, and then allow me to reorganize the, okay, thank you.
Okay, do we need a second on that?
You'll need a second and a vote on that
Discussion,
amendment.
Or do we continue discussion here, or?
Right, at this point, you'd need a second on the amendment, and then you'd have discussion on the amendment and take a vote on the amendment before moving back to the main motion.
Joe has a question.
You can sign it, but you can't circulate it.
Yep.
Tell me where the difference on that is. I guess.
Well, sign it if someone came to your house and asked you to sign a petition. You could sign a petition, but you couldn't go house to house and ask people to sign petitions.
You're just not, as a candidate, going to give them your sheet and say, I need to go out and
Not
get me
even that.
30 signatures.
Okay, so you can sign it. You can go and
You can't contribute to it. You can't get signatures
you can
for
go
it.
door to door and advocate for somebody.
Yep.
Right?
Yes,
But while you're advocating, you can't get a petition signed.
correct.
I don't get why they can't
not a part of a
circulate the
committee.
petitions.
I'm just making the motion. We can have the discussion about
Okay,
that motion. and
should
then-
I find a second and then we'll discuss it some more? Okay, I'm seconding.
Okay. Now
Okay, open for council discussion.
Madam,
I'll answer the question. Here's
Can't do that as a mayor?
if you second, you have to give the chair to someone else.
Oh, you can't second it. I'll second it.
See, my constitutional right was just taken
All right,
away.
I just took it back.
Yeah, but you have mayor's
I'll
privilege, so
second
that
it.
trumps
Sorry.
it. Okay, so to answer the question about
You're welcome.
circulating and not collecting
Right.
is if you're obviously if someone is making financial contributions to a political candidate or a political party or campaign committees, they're financially indebted to that particular individual, which raises the stake. So that's why for me, that's why I make the motion to exclude the contribution or solicit for contribution to take the financial connection out of it.
Okay.
But the recall to circulate the petitions, my belief is the First Amendment allows you to sign it, doesn't mean that you have to go around and that you should go around and circulate one.
Okay, my take is I have friends that contributed to me, and I say to them, when you go to Bocce Ball next week, will you take my petition? And they do.
Yep.
But if you do this, then they can't.
No, only
if they're a
Only
city
if they're
employer.
city employees.
Well, maybe I played bocce ball with someone from the city.
They can't come on our bocce team. They don't belong there. Don't listen to her.
Oh.
It's closed.
I just think if you can sign a petition, you ought to be able to circulate it. I mean, you're putting your name on a document that's going to be a public record. And then on the back, if you're circulating, you have to sign that you're the circulator and that you personally got those signatures. I just don't see why we would restrict that.
We can amend the amendment.
We're just talking about employees.
No, but I.
That's not somebody on your committee.
I'm trying to limit the.
Vice
Let's not
Mayor?
make it so
I'm
hard.
sorry. Vice Mayor? I'm sorry.
You know, I respectfully disagree with Councilmember Stipp on that one comment about you're beholding if somebody gives you money. First of all, when we're running for election,
No,
there's a lot
I
of
hear
people
you.
that donate to us. All right, there could be the requirement community of X that donates to. Does that mean every time they come up before us that we're no? So I just want to put that on the record. The fact that we get donations from somebody doesn't mean that we're not up here, in my view, making what I think is the best decision for the city long term. So
Let me
Okay.
clarify that then. What I took that from a leadership perspective that they teach military officers don't ever take money from your subordinates. Kind of even in poker. Even though you rightfully won it, you never take money from your subordinate, and that's what that statement is based in, not on political contributions. Because I absolutely agree. Just because someone donates does not mean that they own any part of my brain. But it was really from that leadership perspective that statement has.
I do think that elected officials, when money is donated to them, should, and I have always done it, have said, this is not by a vote or a decision. I make decisions on what's good for Goodyear. And so that's the attitude you have, because it's their choice to donate and they have a certain trust in it. But it's a false trust if they think that if they bring somebody before you, they're going to get what they want if it's not good for the city and the public. All right, where are we?
I was just going to say, why is that different than if an employee wants to make a contribution? What you just said, why is that different if it's I don't feel real strongly about the financial. It's just that I don't see the difference from what you just said to if an employee is the one making that contribution.
I do from a leadership perspective. That's why I made the motion that way.
I'm sorry.
I do from a leadership perspective, and that's why I made the motion that way. I believe very strongly in that military. It's no different than the leader of the group is the last one to eat. I'm in that same. In the chow line, it should be the leader's the last one in.
Yes, Vice Mayor.
I don't have a problem with the individual donations. I really don't, but I'm still having a hard time wrapping my hands around something. If you can sign it, but you can't collect it, I don't know.
Because if you sign it, if you're out collecting now, you are a part of their political committee, because that's what you do when you run for office.
And that's
people that you know that you are a part of it.
But that's different than sitting in a local room with people over and they're asking you questions and you're giving a recommendation. That's okay. But if you ask them to sign the petition, that's not okay. Remember, it's okay to voice an opinion.
We're
But if you
saying
sign the
that the people running for office would not be giving petitions to employees to work on their committee to go out and sign.
I'm not talking about anything. Let me phrase that again. You can sign the petition. That's a moment. You can be in a room full of people and make a recommendation.
Right.
Okay.
Freedom of speech.
All right. Or actually, they could have the actual nominating or the signatures there, and you're not signing, but everybody else in the room is signing. So you're not getting your name on it, but you can't actually hand the paper to somebody and ask them to sign.
Well, I
don't know. I'm just
Joe,
missing
I
something.
do not think that they're going to get that technical when you're in a room and someone says, "Will you sign my petition?" I've seen it happen, and then the guy says, "Well, why don't we pass it on to the next?" I think you're getting into the weeds on that. That's just not the way it is. When you can sign a petition, people sign it. If there's 3 people standing around, they'll say, "Are you interested in signing this?" That is not the meaning of this. The meaning of this is being a part of a political committee who is giving out an assignment for you to go out and get them 100 signatures or whatever. That is what it's all about. It's trying to keep them away from political parties. Now, if we don't think that that is part of that, but political candidates, political parties, or campaigning candidates are advocating election on defeat.
Well, let me make it.
Circulate candidate, not circulate means just give it to one person, walk away.
No, I mean sign the back of it.
You got to sign the back of it.
Sign the back of it.
Yeah.
So that's the key. Thank you. Is signing the back of it. Right. That puts you down on record with the city clerk's office as a circulator, which is part of a committee. So
I don't.
That's what that reason.
Well, I don't quite buy that. I got a lot of people who signed my stuff who were never part of my committee. They're just friends handing the stuff out. They weren't on any official committee. They just helped me get signatures.
Well, technically, that's part of your committee.
Well, we can, if you want, we can amend it, or we can vote on the original motion.
I don't want to kill the whole thing, but I would like to see, and again, I don't know if there's enough votes to allow for, because again, they can sign, but they can't circulate. I don't see a difference in there. I'm missing something, I guess. I personally don't see a difference there.
Welcome. Make an amendment and bring it to a vote?
Yeah. But when you go, people walk through and sign your petition, most of the people sign the petition. They're not circulating it. It's only a certain group of people that you get to circulate it. And you would not give it to someone that isn't going to be advantageous to you to acquire many signatures. It's just not that way. It's not the general public that's circulating for you. It's just a few people who want to go through the pain of that.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, if they could sign it,
Well,
you
we
know.
have to come to a decision.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Let's do this so we're not here till midnight. Yeah. Let me go ahead and amend the motion to add E, and if it separate, and if that doesn't pass, then it'll go back to the original motion that Bill had, so we can move on. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So we go A, B, C.
No, I just want to add. We've got a motion on the table right now, correct? Yes. I'm going to add. I'd like to make a sub-motion to add E. That's got to go first. If that fails, then we go back to Bill's,
Okay.
correct?
Okay.
How's that?
All right.
Okay.
So you're making a motion
Make
to
a
add
motion.
E.
Someone second it? You got a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion, a second.
Any discussion?
I think we're ready to call for vote on this one. Now,
This is
Only
on
on
the,
E.
This is on the
only on
sub-amendment.
E. So now we have,
Right.
okay,
This is just about E.
This is just about E.
For E.
just for E. So do we vote or what?
Yes, you're gonna take a vote.
Okay, a roll call vote?
It doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have to.
well,
No, I want a roll call
it's up
vote.
to you.
Okay, roll call vote.
Councilmember Stipp?
No.
Councilmember Homan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pizzillo?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye. Yes.
Mayor Lord?
So this is 3 yeses and 2 noes? No.
No on yours? Passes 3-2.
Okay.
We did it.
Well,
no,
we only
gotta
did
do the
one.
whole
now,
thing.
now
we
you're
got
back,
one
do
done.
you're back to your amendment,
Yes.
Councilmember Stipp's amendment, which will strike G and D.
D and G will include language that
May not.
May not.
Include
May
the
not.
may not
prohibitive
language.
language.
Right.
And that has to do with soliciting contributions or make contributions.
Right.
The other
Can't collect money,
subcategories will
can't
remain
solicit
in.
money.
Yes.
Well,
The money
they're
ones.
gonna
Two
include it, but they're going to
contributions.
say may not make
may not.
contribution. Yeah. That's it.
Those are the only two.
Yeah.
Yes.
Call the question.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Homan? Vice Mayor Pizzillo?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
I need a break. Get through that.
Where are we?
We're done.
Madam Mayor, were there any other amendments that anyone wanted to make to any of the policies this evening?
Policy?
The whole
thing.
The whole package.
There was conversation about the residency requirements, but there were no amendments made.
I lost that one.
Can you buzz backward through the thing just real quick?
Can you just give us that one? Thank you.
I did have a question on 200. while we're in that, do we have any idea how many employees we have reclassified?
Mayor Lord, Councilmember Stipp, going forward, it's hard to guess because it's
No,
based
I don't
on,
mean going forward, but how many we've done, let's say, in the last year or two that this would have applied to?
4, maybe 5.
What'd you say?
4, maybe 5.
4, maybe 5.
Okay.
Any discussion on this? Okay.
Is there a motion on the table for everything else?
Yes.
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 Okay, what's the next? Next,
We have the cigarettes.
residency, and then the last one was the political and politics. Okay. All right, call the question.
So, do we need to state this coming from, where are we and what we should be stating?
Madam Mayor, just one other issue. There was some discussion about uniform versus do we need any more clarifying language about apparel, but there was never any amendment made on that. So,
You know,
can you engage in political activity wearing city logos or insignia? All it says right now is uniforms. Do we need anything else, or are we good?
I would like to add that, Mayor, because I think if you're wearing a city logo, then there's a connection between what you're doing in the city, and that's what we don't want to have.
Okay, this is, let's talk Bryce tags in. This is, we're talking about fire, right?
No, we're talking about anybody. It could be
Anybody.
parks, could be.
Yeah, I've got a logo shirt that says council member, so I cannot wear that if I'm campaigning.
No, not you. You're fine. You're like, I'm
I'm
talking about,
fine?
I'm talking about city staff.
Oh, sorry.
Talking about city
So
staff.
city staff,
With the-
can we separate this so I understand?
With the
this?
logo on it. You know, the Parks and Rec guys have a
Yeah.
logo.
Okay.
It's not necessarily technically a uniform, but it's a thing. Or I think that's what we're talking about.
Right now it says uniform, and
So
that's all
if,
it says.
If we make a motion to include uniforms and any apparel with the city logo on it,
Yeah, I think that would address Councilmember Pizzillo's concern.
that's my motion.
Right, second.
Uniforms, you can't second.
I'll second.
Your rights are
I
taken
don't
away.
like this.
I second it.
All right,
Oh,
Councilmember
all right,
Campbell
I heard a
seconded.
motion by Councilman Stiff and a second by Councilman Campbell.
Any other discussion?
Open for discussion? None? Roll call vote.
Vice Mayor Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Homan?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
So now we have to vote on the whole thing, right?
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Is there a motion on the floor for that?
It's the main
There is a
motion.
motion on it.
Yes.
Okay, we have a second. Roll call vote.
So the
please.
residency stays as stated.
Well, you'll have to, yeah. Reluctantly.
Roll call.
Councilmember Campbell?
Reluctantly, yes.
Councilmember Stipp?
Yes.
Councilmember Homan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pizzillo?
Energetically, yes.
Mayor Lord?
Yeah, yes.
Passes 5-0.
All right.
Crowding you, huh?
I gotta find my paperwork underneath all this.
Have we adjourned?
No, can you
No,
wait
no.
just a minute? Well, let me say thank you for the staff's patience, and Councilman, thank you for leading me on when I was lost. So now, let's get on to information items. Does council have any comments, accommodation, or reports on current events? So,
Yeah, I attended something this week.
please, go.
It takes forever. Actually, two things. One was the wonderful Holly Jolly Christmas or Home Plate for the Holidays. Sorry, I just dated myself. but I'm sure manager, someone's going to talk about that. But all I want to say is it was an awesome. The setup was better. A number of people that were there was incredible. That part was very very energizing. So that was cool. But the one thing that I did attend on behalf of the mayor was the 310th Fighter Squadron pilot graduation, and it was what was really neat about that, other than the obvious, was talking to the leadership of both the 310 Fighter Squadron and from the 56 from Luke itself, was the amount of was their reflection on the amount of community support that there is for Luke and everything that the entire community does for them, and that was really impressive to hear coming from them. Even though we know what we do, but to hear it from their perspective was pretty neat, and it wasn't it. And we were the only city represented there, and that was really that made that moment even more special. So it was I think some real good emphasis for us as a city.
I'm most appreciative of you being there. I try never to miss the events out at the base, and because I'm so involved with them, the position I hold there, and I just thought this, and actually I thought it's a real good opportunity for you to learn more about the military and how it's run. And so hopefully I'll have other opportunities that I can include some of the council in, so you can have that.
Thank you. That would be nice.
Relationship
Thank you.
that Bill developed. So next, Vice Mayor.
First thing is me, Bill, and Sherry, we're at the audit committee, and I think we're very good news. And you'll see it next week, I believe. Is it, Brian?
Yes.
So very good presentation, very good reports. I'll just save it. Don't want to steal the thunder when they do the presentation that week. But I was very pleased with that. The other thing is the shot with a cop, and I know Wally is very, very active in that. And if you could see those kids' eyes when they pulled off, because we sat there and waved to them as they were leaving. I mean, if you could see the eyes of those kids as the police pumped up the sirens and got all the noise things going, I mean, that was just, I mean, sight for sore eyes. And I bet it made those kids' day for the entire year. And again, thanks to, I know, Wally with the Pebble Creek and some of the things that you do out there, and the police themselves, thank you. That was one heck of an event. Really, really enjoyed that. And I'll save some of the others for others.
Councilman Loretano.
I'll just pick one thing that's different. At the League of Cities, I chaired the International Council, and we had a great presentation. I have to get Brian a copy of it, about bringing international development. And even a city the size of Austin does it with like 2 people on their staff to bring in international development, and a very small budget for a city their size. So I will get you that information, because it was kind of unique in ways to bring businesses in when you don't have a lot of extra money to do it. And they've been very successful. So there were plans that we could do something on a city our size.
Yeah, I've asked for us to be part of the Canadian group, and we're working on that. I don't know what's happened with that, but we're definitely been involved in that. Councilman Holman.
I just wanted to briefly mention the home plate for the holidays was great, and something happened there that I think would be affirming if to all of the people on the dais. Is one little boy I had participated in at the Centera School. I had participated in I think I had mentioned it, a career type exploration, and for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, which is something I had always wanted to do. I've done the high school ones for years, but never gotten into the grade schools. And a young man drug his mother over where we were selling the hot chocolate and the donuts and said, Mom, I know her. She was at my school. And he was so very excited and so very proud that he knew me from that. And I just thought, that makes us going to some of these off-the-wall things even more rewarding than it was that day. And I also want to congratulate Wally Campbell, who was elected to the National League of Cities Board and congratulations, Wally.
Thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that. Councilman Campbell?
This past week has been fairly busy I collected 875 dozen cookies from residents in Pebble Creek and delivered them to Luke on Thursday morning at 7 a.m. in the rain. And this is the 9th year that I have been the chairperson and had a house full of cookies. But it's just a joy to be able to participate and help them. On Tuesday afternoon, my Lady Niners golf group had a presentation for our fire chief, Paul Louisi, and Fire Crew 185, and donated over $650 for Goodyear Fill-A-Need in place of us adopting Mobile. And Chief, I just got a hot message that the Bocce Ball Club of Pebble Creek wants to donate $350 to Goodyear Fill-A-Need, and they need me to tell them who to make the check to. So that's an additional $350 plus the $650 that we raised, plus the $1,500 that we have given to Goodyear Fill-A-Need from the home tour. Then on Thursday, I was going to go to Mobile and baked a lot of cookies for the kids, only to be rained out. So I gave the staff the cookies, which was fun. I'm sure Chief is going to...
I really enjoyed them.
I thought you would. Oh, yes. I thought you would. But we would be remiss if we didn't say how wonderful Shop with the Cop is. And I'm sure that Chief will give us an update in probably, in January or after Christmas, Chief, or something. But it all went very well, and we were very happy with it. And then, of course, our Arizona Cardinals won, so we were thrilled.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for all you do with Publix.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah, you do come through all the time. You've done it for years since I've lived there, so greatly appreciated. And General and Mrs. Ployce talked about it the other night, about the cookie lady.
I bet they did.
Yeah, they did. So just so you know that. Okay, some things I want to mention. I definitely want to mention the Mayor's Select Artist Reception. And Guyleen did such a great job on that. We have, well, that's what you talked about, Councilman Holman. We had so many entries this year, double of what we've had, maybe triple of what we've had before. Some very good budding artists. And it was filled with parents and friends. The room was filled. I think that eventually we're going to have another room to put this in because there were that many people. So congratulations to Guyleen for a great job. And then on Friday, I was a speaker at the Valley Leadership in Phoenix. And it originally was supposed to be round tables, about 6 leaders, and it ended up Mayor Stanton and I. So we did away with the round table, and the two of us got up and spoke together and played off each other. And he's a very passionate man and quite a leader. I was quite impressed with him. And we talked a lot about Goodyear and the good things about Goodyear. And we talked about our partnership with Phoenix on many things. We talked about the airport when they were going to when they were going to close the tower. So we had a lot of things that, believe it or not, Phoenix and Goodyear with the airport and the different things, we really partner quite a bit. So that was very good. And then, well, I have to tell you, Shop with a Cop, and I thank you, Wally, and all of Pebble Creek for coming through. And I thank the police, how sweet they were with the children. And I stay for the breakfast and then go out and wave them on the way to the Walmart. But it's just an extraordinary morning, and I can't thank them enough. And then home plate for the holidays. Wow. Is Nathan still here? Yes. Nathan.
It was wonderful.
It was so good. The setup this year, where they had the stage, and the little singers were there, and the tree wasn't crowding us. It was in the distance, and Santa Claus came, and the big bear, and timing was perfect. Santa Claus came, he got out, he got up on the stage. He greeted everybody. Well, before that, council greeted everybody. And then tree lighting, and we had a count of 5. Tree lights went on, and then the fireworks went. And so the fireworks looked like they were coming out of the tree. It was spectacular. And the entire setup around with all the booths was excellent. So your team needs to be congratulated on that, really, most appreciative. So with that, let me see if there was anything else I attended. Pardon me? Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. And then Wally and I went to GPEC to an event, which was Friday morning, which was excellent information. So with that, I think that we're done. So City Manager, it's over to you.
Yes, Mayor and Council. I'll just fill in a couple of blanks. Thank you very much for recognizing the efforts of police for Shop with a Cop and the Parks and Rec group for the home plate for the holidays. Just a couple of things. We will get more information out, but there were 21 youth that had an opportunity to go shop with the cop, and that touched a lot of lives there. So thank you, Chief, and the group that did that. As it relates for home plate for the holidays, the tally's in. We estimated about 5,500 in attendance.
5,500.
5,500, yes. We had 40 tons of snow, so that was a lot of snow, by the way. But appreciate just recognition. Staff really worked hard to look at logistics and create an event that would work even more efficiently, if we can use that word. And most of those activities were already recognized, but do appreciate, again, Nathan, what your staff did. It really made a difference this year. And the lines for Santa Claus, they went without a hitch. That doesn't mean Santa was married, but it just really went smoothly. Sorry, I had to do one. We had the kids' fun zone, and we also had some food trucks in the kettle corn this year as well. And all of that, just the amount of the vendors seemed to be perfect, and they heard a lot of input from community partners as well. So very, very great event.
Mayor, may I ask the city manager and Nathan, or at least let you know, the Goodyear Monument sign that is located on the going northbound on Litchfield Road at Wigwam, southbound on the west side of the street, it has been vandalized. The yellow O's are all gone and have been
colored them in.
Yeah, so if you could have someone take a look at it. I don't know if it has been graffitied or if it's gone, but you can hardly read the sign now. Thank you.
At the same time, that sign has been the one, and I realize the company that made them are out of business, but somehow the entire base needs to be touched up, painted or something. It almost looks like it's something white has been, painted on that or rubbed on it.
Mayor, for clarification, it's the same size, the sign that was just referenced. With the O's that are missing, it's the same sign. Same sign.
That sign needs care.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm not sure about the other signs. Maybe we ought to have them all somebody take a look at all of them. All right. I've lost all of my paperwork here, so is there any other information? Because we're going to start a special meeting. So, from the city manager?
No, Mayor.
Nothing? All right. We're going to adjourn this meeting. In just a moment, we'll start the special meeting as soon as I can find my paperwork.